give us a thumbs up or 100 or something to let us know that you can hear us. Because we're about as loud as we're going to get as far as the room is concerned. So maybe there's a issue going on with YouTube or device that we're recording. Can you hear us now? Testing 1, 2. Can we, are we being heard? Are we being heard? Maybe YouTube only wants to get praise away.
We got a 5.
They got 5. Can you hear us now? If you can hear us, put a 100 up in here.
And I got this up. I turned the volume up on here.
With the captions on? Hearing impaired.
Okay, Tyler has the 100. No, he said the volume is 0. 1 of 100.
1 out of 100. Wow, that is. Well, at this point, only thing I guess we can do, because we're as loud as we're going to be able to get, so you just may have to turn up the volume on your device. Speaking, I don't know what it is that we can do on our end, because we're really as loud as we're going to get. Let's see. All right, well, I guess we will continue on. Again, talking about provision, talking about those provisions that were in the scriptures is there. Again, it's one of those situations where we're taught in the society that that's unacceptable, but I would say even to those that are damaged, those that have not been brought up in society, understand that that wouldn't be, just because it's a provision doesn't mean it's going to be something that we are going to be successful at doing. It's going to take a group of elders, and a system that gives us guidelines to make sure that we're successful at it. Scripture gives us one aspect. I guess I read it. Yeah. So the volume is good.
It wasn't over the things. But
So, again, know what you're getting into before you enter into a marriage. Know what you are getting into.
Now, in that, you have 2 wives. One is loved above the other. Torah doesn't give us any provision to treat one child out of those relationships better than the other one. We had to make sure that we follow the order that was set by the Most High. Understand that He is a of order, and we look at order throughout all of His creation. And again, one of those situations where we know that His laws cannot be done away with, because without law, then we are a people without order. And so we have to have order, we have to have laws, and we have to have commandments and right rulings that give us instructions and guidelines to how we live our lives. And here, if a man has 2 wives, and the older son comes from the relationship of the one wife that he does not care much about, or if he loves the other, the mother of the other children more than he loves the mother of this particular son that's the oldest, well, when it's time to divvy out the inheritance, the oldest son, as according to Torah, gets a double portion. This child has to get the double portion, even though you may love the other wife more than you love the one that's his mother. And so again, we have to stay in order. Continue.
Verse 17. But he is to acknowledge the son of the unloved wife as the firstborn by giving him a double portion of all that he has. For he is the beginning of his strength. The right of the firstborn is his. When a man has a wayward and rebellious son who is not listening to the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and who, when they have disciplined him, does not listen to them, then his father and his mother shall take hold of him and bring him out to the elders of his city, to the gate of his city.
So we have a son that's a wayward son that is going about doing his own thing, not listening, not following instruction, not being obedient to Torah. When we talk about a nation that is accountable one to another, understand that even within that, we have a responsibility to maintain our own homes and our families. Just because we have a son that's gone astray doesn't mean that we can overlook that, because when sin enters into the nation, everybody in the nation is suffering. And so if we know of an individual, even if it's a family member, that has gone astray, that has gone wayward, that is no longer following and doing those things according to this commandment, we had to bring that child, even our own, before the elders of the city. Not to hide him, but a responsibility to bring him before the elders of the city. Continue.
Verse 20. And shall say to the elders of his city, this son of ours is wayward and rebellious. He is not listening to our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. Then all the men of his city shall stone him to death with stones. Thus you shall purge the evil from your midst, and let all Israel hear and fear.
So you say, why would I do that if I know that the potential is that he's going to get stoned? One of the things we have to understand when we serve Elohim is that he has to be supreme in our life. There could be nobody higher than him, nobody more important than our Elohim. Yah is the Most High in our hearts and in our minds and in how we go about life. Understand that when his laws are being broken, no matter who's breaking his laws, but it's more important is not to honor our loved one, but it's more important to honor Yah and his laws. And so if you have a wayward son, a son that has gone astray, a son that no longer desires to do right and to live right, then we are to turn him over to the elders within that community. But that's with anybody. That's even with our neighbors, to do our neighbors that way. If somebody, it instructs us, if we know somebody is causing others to worship other mighty ones, then we turn them over to the elders of the city to be dealt with. Because it is more important that we as a nation are following the guidelines of our Elohim more so than trying to protect and to cover or to allow our loved ones to just do what they want to do outside of the law. Continue.
Verse 22. And when a man has committed a sin worthy of death, then he shall be put to death, and you shall hang him on a tree. Let his body not remain overnight on the tree, for you shall certainly bury him the same day. For he who is hanged is accursed of Elohim, so that you do not defile the land which Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you as an inheritance.
We're not allowed to allow the land to be defiled. And so when an individual is given the death penalty. We do not allow his dead body to hang on a tree. We do not allow his dead body to lay out in the city square. It has to be dealt with according to the instructions that are outlined in Torah. Other than that, we defile the land. This is the land that is given to us by our Elohim, and we have to be obedient in the guidelines that He has set forth for us to be able to enjoy that land. And so we have to. It is important for us, and this is why when the scriptures tell us to raise our children in the way that they should go, it's important that you put all of your energy into raising your children to make sure that they understand every aspect of Torah when we're living in a community or living within our homeland, because other than that, we are putting them in a peculiar situation, and a situation that could even bring about their death, because they do not honor, understand, nor are they obedient to the laws that govern our land. And so it's important for us to understand Torah and to teach our children Torah so that they know the order. Continue.
Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 1. When you see your brother's ox or his sheep straying away, you shall not hide yourself from them. Return them to your brother without fail.
Don't hide yourself from them. You can't just say, you know, it ain't my responsibility. I got something better to do. You see an ox roaming the streets. You have a responsibility according to Torah, and we cannot overlook that. Often we just think it's better to just say, you know what, I'm just going to turn and act like I never saw it. We have a responsibility not to ignore what we see, not to ignore the circumstances and the situation. Here is someone lost an ox. We see someone that has lost anything. We have a responsibility to care for that item, that animal, until it can be returned. Continue.
Verse 2. And if your brother is not near you, or if you do not know him, then you shall bring it to your own house, and it shall be with you until your brother seeks it. Then you shall return it to him.
And it shall be with you. You're to care for it, feed it. If it needs cleaning, you clean it. You got to do whatever it takes to care for that animal, because it's your it's our responsibility until that individual comes seeking it out. We don't argue with them. We don't say, "Oh, you owe me a certain amount of money for caring for this thing." It could have been a week. It could have been a month. Until that individual finds where his animal is at, and then when he comes, then we give that back to him as instructed by Torah. Continue.
Verse 3. And so you do with his donkey, and so you do with his garment, and so you do with whatever your brother loses, which he has lost and you have found. You are not allowed to hide yourself.
I sit up and I look, and I know I can't fit nothing that Caleb had. He got nice garments, and he leaves a garment out. He leaves, and I know I don't go hide the garment and say, you know what, when I go out of town, I'll wear it out of town because I know he ain't gonna show up and see me in it. But I'm to take that garment and I'm to hang it up. I'm not, don't kick it off in the corner. Don't use it as a cleaning rag, but you take that garment, you care for it, put it up until he comes looking for it. When he comes looking, hey, Aki, you see my cloak, you see my garment? I say, yeah. And I got it here, and it's hung up, taken care of, and I give it back to him. But I don't hide from him. Oh, here Caleb comes, so I got to go hide. So he might be asking for that garment back. No, I gotta. If I know he's going to come looking for it, I gotta present myself so that he is able to retrieve the things that he has lost. Continue.
Verse 4. When you see your brother's donkey or his ox fall down on the way, you shall not hide yourself from them. Don't
hide yourself. You know you got work to do. You see the donkey fall in a hole. You see an ox fall and struggling, I know it's easy to just turn and say, it ain't none of my business. Most High is saying, no, we don't turn ourselves from these things. We don't hide ourselves from these things. We don't just say, you know what, somebody else will do it. But we have a responsibility as a community, as a nation of people, to help one another. Because we are to love one another as we love ourselves. And so knowing how I would respond to my own animal, if my own animal stumbled and fell, I've got to respond in the same way, in like manner. Even if it's a neighbor, somebody I don't even know. I see an ox, it stumbles, it falls in a pit or in a trench. I'm going to stop what I'm doing, and I got to go help and to be that individual or that ox or that animal get back to where it belongs.
Verse 4 continues. Help him raise them without fail. A woman does not wear that which pertains to a man.
Now this is scripture that they like to use for saying a woman can't wear pants in the church. Garments of the day in which this was written, garments that we wear in today's time is the message. It's not a specific thing, but a specific name. It can't be pants when pants wasn't the items that were being worn back in that day. But it's talking about people that are trying to dress and to look like the opposite sex. I can't wear, even if it's a garment, a long garment, a woman cannot wear, nor should she wear anything that pertains to a man. A man is not to wear anything that's going to pertain to a woman. Even in today's time now, I'm not going to put on a woman's pair of pants.
Right.
Because a woman's pair of pants are designed and cut differently than a man. It is very easy to see when a woman has on a pair of pants, whether she's wearing a pair of pants made for a man or whether she's wearing a pair of pants made for a woman. And it's very clear if a man does that. Extremely clear. But we're not to be wearing things that pertain to the other sex. And that's what these scriptures are talking about. It's not talking about pants. And they say, well, pants are men's items. Well, so are shirts. But a blouse looks an awful lot like a man's shirt. But how come we're not talking about a woman shouldn't wear shirts? A woman's shirt is still made different than a man's shirt. I'm not going to wear a blouse. Because anybody that understands what a blouse looks like and knows how it's buttoned up and know how it's cut, when they see me, they're going to know I got on a woman's garment. And so it's the same. The thing is it's not talking about specifics that we have outlined in today's time. It's talking about those things that pertain to men. A woman should not be wearing, my wife should not be wearing my clothes at all, nor should I be wearing her clothes at all, whether it's clothes seen or unseen. We say that again, whether it's seen or unseen. No ox should be having on no woman's undergarments under their clothes. Okay? So it's seen or unseen. We should not be wearing women's garments, nor should a woman wear a man's garment. Continue.
Verse 5. A woman does not wear that which pertains to a man, nor does a man put on a woman's garment. For whoever does this is an abomination to Yahuwah, your Elohim.
It's an abomination. Stay far away from doing anything like this.
So you can see examples of this in the nation in which we live today. You see people that are called cross-dressers. They're wearing the outfit of the opposite sex. Women wearing business suits and ties. Men wearing dresses. How many comedians have you seen? From Flip Wilson to Tyler Perry, wearing dresses, that's abomination to the Most High. That is an abomination to the Most High. And we see examples of it all around us in this nation. We are not to learn the ways of the heathen, and we are not to do as they do.
You know, talking about those comedians, you know, it seems to be a thing where they seemingly are required to wear these dresses. Because there are some that in their days before they get popular, they say, you'll never catch me in a dress. And then once all of a sudden they become popular and money is rolling in, next thing you know, we find them doing a skit or something in a dress, showing up on a late show or a talk show, wearing a dress, even though they're making light of it. It seems that somewhere in their career, they have to put on a dress and go out in public because they all seem to do it. From the music industry all the way through to the comedians, and they just seem to be a requirement somewhere in their contract, I guess.
Even amongst the actors, look at Will Smith's son. Another prime example of a young man wearing young women's clothing. This is what surrounds us in this nation. This is why we need to be set apart. This is why we need to return to Torah and follow the instructions that are given. It's very specific. It's for your good.
Verse 6. When you come upon a bird's nest along the way, in any tree or on the ground, with young ones or eggs, with the mother sitting on the young or on the eggs, do not take the mother with the young. Let the mother go without fail, and take the young for yourself, so that it might be well with you, and that you shall prolong your days.
There were laws, commandments, and right rulings that even govern how we deal in nature. We see that when a heathen nation came to this nation, how it went out and without care, just started destroying all of the beasts of the field, buffalo. But and if there's no laws, then they would overhunt, they would overkill, they would overproduce, they don't have anything to govern them as to what they do and what they don't do. Most High was very concerned about these things, and so he's even given us laws that when we find a bird and of how to deal with that animal so that we don't destroy the environment. He was concerned about all of these things. And one thing I've said often when we study Torah is that Torah is very detailed in giving us how to behave in our lives all the way around. From the way we deal in nature, how we deal with one another, how we are to dress, every aspect of life. If we pay attention, Torah gives us instructions as to how we are to behave.
Verse 8. When you build a new house, then you shall make a parapet, or a border, or railing for your roof, so that you do not bring blood guilt on your house when one falls from it.
Blood guilt. Make sure that we put, and what that is that's a rail or banister all the way around, because often they on the rooftops they went and they can have chairs where they sat out on, or areas where the roof was part of the house. It was part of the area that they went out. Now you can't build a house and have access to that and not make sure that it's safe. It's important that if people are going to go up there or anywhere, you can't even have a deck. I mean, we got a deck here, but we got to have a railing around it. Why? Because we can't. If somebody was to fall off of it and die, then that's our responsibility. And he's saying to make sure we don't have that blood guilt, to make sure that we have these railings around our rooftops.
Verse 9. Do not sow your vineyard with different kinds of seed, lest the yield of the seed which you have sown and the fruit of your vineyard be defiled.
When we plant in our gardens, again, these are various laws and commands, and they kind of stretch from one end of the spectrum to the other. But they're giving us insight as to how we are to behave. We have in this nation where they're mixing and mingling everything. Mosai was against all that. He was telling us that when we plant our vineyards and our gardens, you gotta plow the land. Don't be, you're have one type of fruit there, one type of vegetation there, so it doesn't defile, it doesn't mix in with other food. And so it's important for us to maintain a separation in these areas.
Verse 10. Do not plow with an ox and a donkey together.
Balance. It's important to understand that, balance as well. In all that we do, don't plow with an ox and a donkey. One of them is stronger than the other. One of them, one has a different temperament. And so to try to make them or to put them together, you're putting undue stress on one or the other animal. Again, the details that he gives us as to how we are to do things is very great, and if we're watching, we'll find exactly how we're to do things in this life so that we can find success and that we can be in our right standing with the Most High.
Verse 11. Do not put on a garment of different kinds, of wool and linen together.
We don't wear garments of wool and linen. Don't mix. We don't mix two natural materials together. So wool and linen we don't put together. They wear differently, and so because they wear differently, again, you're putting the way your garments are going to look or the way they're going to wear is going to be odd, and it's not going to fall in line with how the Most High desires for His people to look. So again, detail in all aspects of our lives.
Verse 12. Make tassels on the four corners of the garments with which you cover yourself.
Who's not wearing tassels? Who's not wearing fringes? This is what the Most High instructs us to do. It can't be. It's not up to whether or not I like the style. He tells us to put tassels on the four corners of our garment. And so I wear them, all the time, every day, all of my clothes. If I don't have them on my shirt, I got them on my belt loops, on my jeans as I'm going out. And you'll be amazed at how many people recognize and know exactly what you're doing and what you have on. Those that are in the walk know who you are. They know that you've made a commitment to follow the Most High's laws, statutes, and commandments. I can identify my people when I see them out there following, visually, looking at their clothes, that they're following the commandments of the Most High.
13.
Is that just for males?
Not just for males, because it didn't point out male or female. The women ought to be putting, fringes around the bottoms of their skirts. They should be, they got blouses on. They don't have fringes around, on their skirt or whatever. They can wear tassels or tzitzis on their shirts. And so we all need to learn how to make them. That was one of the first things that I learned how to do. As I went online and I learned early on how to make my own tzitzis. I asked my Isha to put fringes on things, but the things that she couldn't put fringes on, I knew how to make my own tzitzis to be able to make sure that I had tzitzis to represent and to put and to dress in a way that is pleasing to the Most High.
Verse 13. When any man takes a wife and shall go into her and shall hate her and shall make abusive charges against her and bring an evil name on her and say, I took this woman, and when I came to her, I did not find her a maiden.
Mm-hmm.
Then the father and mother of the young woman shall take and bring out the proof of the girl's maidenhood to the elders of the city at the gate. And the girl's father shall say to the elders, I gave my daughter to this man as wife, and he hates her. And see, he has made abusive charges against her, saying, I did not find your daughter a maiden, and yet these are the proofs of my daughter's maidenhood, and they shall spread the garment before the elders of the city.
Now, for him to bring this type of charge, he must really, really hate this woman, because this charge, if it's true, brings a death penalty. And so here he is bringing a charge, and this is why it's so important for us, for our daughters to remain in our care, because your parents are going to cover you and to make sure that the laws and that the things that are necessary to take place when you get married happen. When a young woman marries a man, when he goes into her, she's a virgin. They would take that sheet and that blood stain that's on that sheet, and they would keep that as security for that daughter, so that if an accusation is being made, there is proof that she was indeed a virgin when she was married. If not, then there has to be arrangements and in writing, so that in that ketubah, so that everybody understands that she was not a virgin when they were married. Because to present a maiden or a young lady to a man and say that she's a virgin, and then he pays a price for a virgin, and he's believing that this is what he's getting, and then finds out that he's something different. Well, if nobody was speaking up for her, then that means that either the parents were being deceitful, she was being deceitful, or somebody was lying, somebody was trying to make gain of the situation, and because of that, there's going to be a death penalty.
So understand that in our culture, there was no such thing as premarital sex.
None.
You can see that when you look at these verses. If the man is coming to the father and saying, I found her not a maid, or I found her not a virgin, then that's what he expected that he was marrying. And so we have to understand our culture is not the same as the heathen culture where we live. Just because somebody else is doing it doesn't mean that our daughters need to be doing it. Because we are his people, and thus he holds us to a standard that he does not hold the other nations to. We have to understand our own culture. The only way that the man can say this is that in our culture there was no provision for sex before marriage.
Continue.
Verse 18. And the elders of that city shall take that man and punish him, and fine him 100 pieces of silver, and give them to the father of the young woman, because he has brought an evil name on a maiden of Israel. And she is to be his wife. He is not allowed to put her away all his days.
So, if he brings this evil report, he's not going to be allowed to do, I don't make a difference what she do after that. He's not allowed to divorce her, because he had already gone before the elders of the city and brought an evil report, one that is false. 100 pieces of silver he has to pay for what he's done. He is to be whipped. Then he is not allowed at all to divorce this woman. Continue.
Verse 20. But if the matter is true, that the girl was not found a maiden, then they shall bring out the girl to the door of her father's house, and the men of her city shall stone her to death with stones, because she has done wickedness in Israel, the whore in her father's house. Thus you shall purge the evil from your midst.
To whore in her father's house, because this is the situation that it was. Because her father would have believed that his daughter was a virgin because he hadn't given consent as her covering. He would have not given consent to her having any relations with any man. There would have been no report that she was raped. There would have been so that as far as he knew, as far as her mother knew, that she had kept herself. And so when they sit and they are working out an arrangement with the prospective man to marry, in everybody's sight, in everybody's understanding, she should have been a virgin. But to be other than that, then she was doing things undercover behind the backs of everybody, and so she was acting or living a life of a whore. And that is where it's considered. And so when you're understanding our culture that when you're having sex before marriage, that is considered whoredom. Don't make a difference whether you're getting paid or not. It's whoredom. And it's not something that we or our people should be engaged in. That's what the other nations do.
So we see that the penalty for this action is death, to be stoned to death. So I think that we need to teach our daughters what a serious crime it is to do what the other nations do. And they push sex on TV, they push it in the commercials, they push it in the television series, but we are not to do as the heathen do. Now watch as we go on and how he goes into even more detail. Continue.
22. When a man is found lying with a woman married to a husband, then both of them shall die. Both the man that lay with the woman and the woman. Thus you shall purge the evil from Israel.
Adultery is a death penalty amongst our people. A man is not to lay with another man's wife. A woman is not to lay with another woman's husband. That's not just a situation where they get divorced after that. No, they get stoned, both the man and the woman.
23. When a young girl who is a maiden is engaged to a husband, and a man finds her in the city and lies with her, then you shall bring them both out to the gate of that city, and shall stone them to death with stones. The girl because she did not cry out in the city, and the man because he had humbled his neighbor's wife. Thus you shall purge the evil from your midst.
It is important for the woman to cry out and to for her own safety. If she doesn't cry out and she's amongst in the city where people could have heard her, then she is guilty as well as the man. And so understand that is her way of being able to defend herself when the man is being brought to judgment, that she did indeed cry out, and those that would have heard her would have had to speak up for them.
So let's bring it up to today. No means no. Daughters of Zion, if someone tries to take advantage of you and it's of a sexual nature, no means no. If they come to you like that, then you need to cry out, because that is how you draw attention to the thing that's being wrong, how you're being wrong.
But it's important also to understand that this is why our daughters should be home with them until they're married. So that they don't put themselves, or they're not creating an environment for them to be victims like that. All of our daughters need covering until we can pass them from one covering to the next. As long as she's in my house, then there should always be somebody there around, and if nobody else is going to be in that house, I'm going to make sure as a covering Just like I make sure for my own Isha that there's no man that's going to do that to take advantage of her. And so we should always have, a woman should always have a covering, somebody that's looking out for her, that can speak up for her, and that can protect her in every aspect of her life.
Verse 25. But if a man finds the girl who is engaged in the field, and the man takes hold of her and lies with her, then only the man who lay with her shall die. But you shall do no matter to the girl. The girl has no sin worthy of death, for the matter is like a man who rises against his neighbor and murders him. He beat you.
So if she's in the field or she's in a position or a place where she could not have been heard, period, then when the crime is found out, only the man will be punished, not the woman, because no one would have been around to hear her cry. And so, but if it's in an area where people could have heard her, it is her. She needs to make sure that she cries out aloud, because that is going to be her. That is going to be her protection. And if she's in the field, it's still a responsibility to cry out. But because it was in a secluded place, only the man will be punished, because the chances are somebody wouldn't have been able to hear it.
So before you continue, let's pay close attention to the first sentence of this next verse, because it qualifies the rest of the passage. Continue.
For he found her in the field, and she cried out, the engaged girl, but without anyone to save her. When a man finds a girl who is a maiden, who is not engaged.
Who is a what?
Who is a maiden, who is not engaged.
Okay.
And he seizes her and lies with her, and they are found out. Then the man who lay with her shall give to the girl's father 50 pieces of silver, and she is to be his wife, because he has humbled her. He is not allowed to put her away all his days.
So often we hear if a man lays with a woman that sex is marriage, sex is not marriage, there was a penalty if an individual was to lay with the woman and to defile her. And then, yes, he was instructed that they are to be married after that. There was a price to pay, they're to be married, and then there is a penalty that no matter whether she's a good wife or not, he cannot divorce her. So that act of premarital sex takes away many of their rights that they would normally have in any other circumstances. So sex is not marriage. Sex before marriage is not sex before marriage is not marriage. But a penalty is attached to that that goes with them throughout their time together.
And notice how verse 28 qualifies 29. If a man find a damsel that is a virgin, which is not betrothed. So to get to the second part of that, you have to pay close attention to the first. First, the damsel has to be a virgin and she's not engaged, not betrothed. And he lay hold on her and lie with her, and they be found. Then the man that lay with her shall give unto the damsel's father 50 shekels of silver. So he has to pay the fine, and she shall be his woman, because he has humbled her. He humbled her because she was a virgin. So we have to pay close attention to what's being said here, because the Most High addresses every situation as he goes through this, and we can't take part of it and not understand all of it. Continue, please.
Verse 30. A man does not take his father's wife, nor uncover his father's skirt.
and we've heard this many times before. I mean, man is not to lay with his father's wife. Continue. I mean, there's a question.
Leode made a comment, there have been so many cases where someone has said they had been raped and later would recant their story and face no punishment, whether the man did the time for the charge or not. And then he said, personally, I know of a woman who was raped and was scared to cry out during. Crying out seems obvious, but you would be surprised to find out that not everyone thinks that way.
In a society where, with the laws that they have now, it is difficult to follow and do the things that are under the laws that of our nation. There is no reason for a woman to be afraid to cry out when she's being raped under these laws. Why? Because if she doesn't cry out, she's gonna die anyway. She has to cry out. She has to cry out if there's going to be any punishment towards that man. So that when it's found out or when the accusation is brought, she will have the witness of those that heard her cry out to be able to come to her defense. Whereas in today's time, none of that matters.
Well, when you go to the police station to answer questions, the first thing they ask you is, why didn't you cry out? And the response is usually because I feared for my life. Mm-hmm. Okay? But that gives the offender or the criminal the power, because you are allowing them to threaten you into submission. And when you go to give your testimony, the first thing they're going to ask you, why didn't you cry out? The second question is, why did you wait till now to report it? Because a lot of times women are battered during this, and they don't want to come forward and stand up and say that this even happened. How many times do you hear testimonies of women who held on to this thing for years without admitting that it even happened? They go into denial. This is how serious it is when someone takes something that is not theirs to take. That's why in our culture, this was totally not allowed.
And this is one of the reasons why, too, I say death penalties work. In this society, regardless of how many women this man would have raped, he doesn't get the death penalty. He just goes to jail for a number of years and then he's released. He still has the issues. He still has problems because prison doesn't rehabilitate anybody. And this is why there's fear, because they know that one day he'll get out. And depending on the color of his skin, he may not do any time at all. At all. So in our nation, in our culture, when we're ruled by the laws that have been given to us by our Elohim, then the woman that is being abused or taken advantage of in this situation has a lot of power and a lot of say-so, so that she can protect herself. But she has to make sure that she understands where the rights that she's in, and also the penalty for not following those guidelines.
So that would be the importance of knowing Torah.
That's the importance of knowing Torah, yes.
Chapter 23, verse 1. He who is wounded in the stones or has his privy cut off shall not enter into the community of Yahuwah.
No, there was no eunuchs in the service of the Most High. So if a situation came where this happened, where your private parts were cut off, then you did not go into the service of the Most High.
Verse 2. Yeah.
Before we read verse 2, let's understand the definition of a bastard. Because most often, or sometimes, when a woman is raped and a child comes from that rape, that child is called a bastard because the child is born out of wedlock. So let's now read verse 2 with that understanding.
A bastard shall not enter the community of Yahuwah. Even a 10th generation of his shall not enter the community of Yahuwah.
So yes, understanding that again, as we strive to have order, women weren't having a bunch of kids outside of wedlock. Why? Because it created a disgrace for her and the child that is being born under those conditions. In this community, in this society, it don't make a difference. You can walk down the street with your head, high, because everybody's foreign, everybody's having kids, and ain't nobody's, and half of society is being raised without fathers. Makes no difference. You have a question?
There were a couple of comments online. Gabby stated, sometimes the situation alone will paralyze you, therefore no voice to cry out. I also understand the scripture and the importance of crying out as well. And Leodade made the comment also, I have read where eunuchs would enter. Says he's going to try to find it real fast.
Continue.
So, Shemu'ėl had said something about the definition of a bastard. I'm having trouble understanding what you meant by that. You said a bastard is somebody who is a child from a woman who was raped.
That's one situation that would produce what was called a bastard. Let's get the definition from Merriam-Webster's dictionary. And it reads, definition of bastard, an illegitimate child. Something that is spurious, irregular, inferior, or of questionable origin.
Well, it's just that I guess he's, because the Strong's bastard is a mamzer. And that's from an unused root, meaning alienate, a mongrel that is born of a Yahudim father and a heathen mother.
Okay, so we definitely have to consider that definition as it relates to our culture.
Right.
A Hebrew father, but a mother of another nation.
He's a bastard as well. Yes.
Okay, so
That's what has in the Strong.
if we relate that back to the battle brides that we were talking about earlier,
I would say that that's one of the reasons why the scriptures lean us towards not marrying outside of our own nation
Yes,
and
they
our own
do.
tribe. Because again, that there's a penalty or a stigma placed on the children that are born out of those relationships.
Yeah, there's repercussions. They can do that, but they won't be able to, like you say, serve
Right.
or enter into the
Right.
assembly.
Con.
Verse 3. An Amorite or a Moabite shall not enter the assembly of Yahuwah. Even a 10th generation of them shall not ever enter the assembly of Yahuwah. Because they did not meet you with bread and water on the way when you came out of Mitzrayim. Because they hired against you Balaam, son of Beor, from Pethor of Aram, to curse you.
Most High doesn't take kindly to those nations that have tried to hurt his children or tried to get in the way of their progress or have tried to bring them down in any way. And so when we look at the nation, even this nation that have held us captive, this is why when judgment is meted out, it is going to be extremely harsh because of what the nations that have held us captive have done to us.
Verse 5. But Yahuwah your Elohim refused to listen to Balaam, and Yahuwah your Elohim turned the curse into a blessing for you, because Yahuwah your Elohim loves you. Do not seek their peace, nor their good, all your days, forever.
Now, he says, do not seek their peace or their good. Understand that as we learn Torah, Torah is giving us the foundation and giving us instruction and guidelines to all that we need. It has told us not to go in, not to try to look into any of these other religious systems, to learn about them. We're not to try to find out, these nations that are against us, we're not to even try to do good with them. I mean, we need to separate ourselves from them completely. Separate ourselves and establish our own communities and and lives based off of Torah. Because what they're teaching us is causing us to struggle in our belief, causing us to struggle in our service to the Most High, because we're picking up their ways and we're being influenced by them to live a life that is not set apart.
Let's take a quick look at our society today. You have all these young men running around making babies. My baby daddy. How many times do you hear that? We're not talking about a young man that married the young woman. We're talking about a young man that procreated with the young woman, and then he's off to the next young woman. How many households are broken because of this type of behavior? This is a sinful behavior that's an indictment on our people nowadays, and all it does is bring curses upon the family, because these young men are not following Torah. They just go from one woman to another, making babies with no thought of what comes after, what are the consequences. And this is why when you look at us now, we're in one of the reasons that we're in a poor and failing condition, because our young people are not trained up in the Torah at home. And so when they get of age to do these things, they're not following Torah. So what happens as a result of that? All of these babies are born. And the children have to bear the brunt of the sin. Continue.
Verse 7. Do not loathe an Edomite, for he is your brother. Do not loathe a Mitzrayim, because you were a stranger in his land. The children of the third generation born to them do enter the assembly of Yahuwah.
Hallelujah.
Verse 9. When the camp goes out against your enemies, then you shall guard yourself from every evil matter. When there is a young man among you who is not clean because of an emission in the night, then he shall go outside the camp. Let him not come into the midst of the camp. And it shall be at the approach of evening that he bathes with water, and when the sun sets, let him come into the midst of the camp.
And so, again, laws that govern cleanliness. When we talk about the Most High looking into every aspect of our life, it's even considering our cleanliness of our bodies. That we had specific laws and specific right rulings that govern that. Yes, sir.
I want to bring out the point in verse 7 that says you shall not abhor an Edomite. And nowadays, that's like the biggest thing you hear is all about Esau, hating on Esau, all these things that really contradict what this says. And it goes the same thing for the people from Mitzrayim. They have a big conflict between Egyptology and Israelites and a whole lot of things like that. But when you look at history, Israel has always been associated with Mitzrayim one way or another. When we ruled in Mitzrayim with Joseph, everything was prosperity. When we ruled, and a lot of times, the same thing this is saying is how we got to stop now and look back on these things that we spend too much time either worried about who Esau, banging on Esau, fussing at Esau, and 90% have the concept of who Esau is wrong. So you looking at the wrong person, saying the wrong thing to the wrong person, and in all actuality, they can be standing right next to you and you won't even recognize. So this here, you just spend your time on correcting ourselves within our own nation and not worrying about who Esau is.
Right. And that's and I think that's very important, is that we need to focus in on what the Most High has called us to do and who He has called, why He has chosen us. Because and if we're doing that, then it doesn't make a difference what who these other nations are and what they do. I'm not trying to get with these other nations. Why? Because I understand of what that's going to do to my generation. I'm not trying to learn from them because I know they don't have a relationship with the Most High. And so all of my focus needs to be on Him. If I can focus on Him and then be the light that He has me to be to the world, whether they're Mitzrayim or they're Edomites, the light will be as such that they will desire to serve the Most High and to come under subjection to Him and His nation. And at that point, I don't have to worry, but I need to focus on me. And in the damage that we had in this captivity, we've got a lot to work on. We got a lot to work on.
That's another part right in there also that's talking about that third generation. There's something with that. And He said they'd be able to come into the assembly of Yahuwah in the third generation. So there's a lot that really people contradict, and we know who most of these are that are promoting this doctrine to hate Esau. But they use the scripture that the Most High hated Esau, but He didn't teach us to follow in that step to hate Esau, because He didn't tell us to hate Esau also.
That's right.
Right, because what does He say? I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy. That's not, we don't get to choose who He has mercy on. And He's telling us right here in verse 7, you shall not abhor an Edomite, for he is your brother. Esau and his brother came from the same set of parents. They were twins.
Same moon.
So that kind of brings into question what is being said amongst the nation about that situation that you talked about with Esau and understanding who Esau is.
And believe me, I'm not giving them a pass.
Right.
They go, the Most High will bring upon, will judge them according to how He has dealt with His people. But that's His judgment, vengeance belongs to Him. And so, if He says not to abhor them, then we don't abhor them. Again, we just focus in on what we're supposed to do and grow as a nation, as we strive to let go of all this damage that we have taken on because of this captivity.
Now, understand in verse 7 where He says, you shall not abhor a Mitzri or an Egyptian, because you were a stranger in his land. So we can't abhor them, but that doesn't mean that we are to come along them and side them and serve their mighty ones.
Right.
Right. That is not permissible. So while we don't abhor them, we understand that they were merciful to us when we were in their land. We were a stranger in that land. And every time that they needed to protect Hamashiach when he was a baby, they went into Egypt. So that has always been a place of safety for us because we blended in. So the people that you see today that are Egyptians are not the same as the people that were Egyptians back in the time that we're reading about. They were a darker skin and blended. We blended in. When we went to Mitzrayim, we fit right in.
Right.
So we have to understand what happens when a people is conquered and how the conquerors then take the battle brides and make children.
Right.
And the complexion changes over time.
Which means that we're no longer of that nation.
Verse 9 says, when the camp goes out against your enemies, then you shall guard yourself from every evil matter. Understand that when we're dealing with the nations, regardless if it's in battle, regardless if it's in commerce, whatever we do, we have to always be on guard because we have to understand that we are a set-apart people. We don't take on the likeness or the characteristics of the nations round about. And so we have to be on guard continuously.
Verse 12. You shall have a place outside the camp where you shall go out, and you shall have a sharp implement among your equipment. And when you sit down outside, you shall dig with it and turn and cover your excrement. Verse 14. For Yahuwah your Elohim walks in the midst of your camp to deliver you and give your enemies over to you. Therefore your camp shall be set apart, so that it does not see unclean matter among you, and shall turn away from you.
We have a responsibility to do things decently and in order. We got, when we're out camping, Sukkot, we don't make the environment filthy. Understanding the Most High is walking amongst us, and so we have a responsibility to make sure it's clean. And in that cleanliness, nobody is being defiled. I don't have to step in nothing. I don't have to go around smelling nothing. Why? Because things are taken care of in the proper order. Okay.
So, yes, we have to understand the difference in the cultures. In Old England, they used to throw the excrement out the windows onto the street where everybody walked. Do you see the difference in the culture of the other people and our culture? We're told to have a shovel or a paddle on the end of our weapon. Do you know how important that is? Your weapon is something you don't ever leave. So even when you're out in battle, you got that paddle there so you can bury your excrement. There's a difference between our culture and the other nations.
They threw it out the window.
They threw it out the window.
As people are walking down the street.
That's
why the rats got so bad there.
Alright.
And you wonder why the plague was a big thing.
Disease, plagues, and all kinds of stuff. Okay.
Verse 15. You do not hand over to his master the slave who has escaped from his master to you. Let him dwell with you in your midst, in the place which he chooses within one of your gates, where it is pleasing to him. Do not oppress him.
So, if an individual, according to the laws, if an individual, and we see this in the Brit Hadashah, where an escaped prisoner was not, was returned only in the sense that they had a discussion to begin to mend things. But when an individual is escaped, he's escaping for a reason. Things are not going well. Maybe he's not being treated right. And so we don't put him back in a situation that could cause him to lose his life or to be, in even more bodily damage. So we don't return that back to them in that manner.
Verse 17. None of the daughters of Israel is to be a cult prostitute, nor any of the sons of Israel be a cult prostitute.
Mm-hmm.
Do not bring the harlot fee of a whore or the pay of a dog to the house of Yahuwah your Elohim for any vowed offering, for both of these are abomination to Yahuwah your Elohim.
So we're not to get into these practices of whoredom, of cult prostitutes or temple prostitution, whether male or female. And the monies that are gained from these things are an abomination to the Most High. And that's what they're talking about when it says, do not bring the harlot fee of a whore. That is a female prostitute, and it says or the pay of a dog. The dog is a male prostitute. That's what dog is. That's what that's referring to, male prostitution. And that fee is not to be brought into the house or to be used or into the temple, and that is not to be used. That is an abomination to the Most High.
So these things were being practiced by the nations that were around us. Cult priests and cult priestesses, where sexual acts were part of their worship. So can you see why he wants us to be set apart? He doesn't want us to do what the other nations are doing. And he's telling us right here, he's spelling it out for us. You are not to do this. Continue.
Verse 19. Do not lend at interest to your brother, interest of silver, interest of food, or interest of whatever is lent at interest. To a foreigner you lend at interest, but to your brother you do not lend at interest, so that Yahuwah your Elohim might bless you and all that you put your hand to in the land which you are entering to possess.
We're not to get rich off of one another. But we don't, all of our transactions are fair and balanced. We're not to have interest. So, if I lend you $100, I don't get $125 back. I can do that with the other nations. I can gain from the other nations, but when it comes to our people, we have to make sure that we're treating our people as we treat ourselves. And so we have to make sure that there's no poor amongst us, that I'm not getting rich off of the next person. We can make, again, we can sell land and do whatever, but I'm not to get rich. I'm not to making more money off of you, off of your circumstances and your situation. And so we don't lend with interest to our brothers.
Do you see how twisted the culture has gotten? The imposter people who claim to be us owned all of the banking systems in the world, the Rothschild banks. And so when they look at us and they give us a credit card that's 30% interest, they don't look at it as a violation at all, because they're pretending to be us. So they don't look upon us as their brother. So they're looking at us as another nation and charging us usury and charging us interest on the money. They're so wicked that they lend money to, if two nations are in a conflict, they lend money to both the nations that are fighting against each other. And they got rich doing this. But that's the difference between our culture and the culture of other nations, even the culture of the imposters that are pretending to be us.
Verse 21. When you make a vow to Yahuwah your Elohim, do not delay to pay it. For Yahuwah your Elohim is certainly requiring it of you, and it shall be sin in you. But when you abstain from vowing, it is not sin in you. That which has gone from your lips, you shall guard and do. For you voluntarily bow to Yahuwah your Elohim, which you have promised with your mouth.
So we have to be careful. It's better not to make a vow. But if you make a vow, understand you have a responsibility to carry that out. That if not to carry out that vow is sin. Okay? That's not to make a vow. But if you're going to do that, make sure you guard yourself to carry it out, because it will be sin before the Most High. Continue.
24. When you come to your neighbor's vineyard, you shall eat to the satisfaction of your desire, but do not put any in a receptacle of yours.
And this is a welfare system. You hungry? You can go, to the vineyard and, somebody's vineyard and pick off. I mean, you can't put nothing in a bag or bucket, pockets, but you can eat till your fill. I can go out and pick off grapes and I'm standing there, and I'm eating the grapes. So if I see an apple, I pick an apple, I can eat an apple. But we just cannot go in and harvest that land. So I can't go in and say, I need some grapes or some wine. So I go out with a nice big bucket, and get, and start picking from my neighbor's vineyards. I can't do that. It's only for my consumption while I'm there. And I can eat to my fill while I'm there. When I move on, I can't have anything in my pockets, bags, or buckets, or anything else. Continue.
25. When you come into your neighbor's standing grain, you can pluck the heads with your hand, but do not use a sickle on your neighbor's standing grain.
No, again, we don't harvest their fields to try to fill our stomach, but we can walk through and get grain. And one of the things that I learned, because not being growing up on a farm or anything, when you have wheat, wheat. Look, it comes and it's got a husk on it, and when you rub your hands together, it kind of breaks off that husk, and you can blow that husk off, and then you have that raw grain or that wheat, and you can actually eat that. And it's got a real good nutty flavor to it. It's kind of gummy, but you can sit there and eat just like the apostles did when they went through the field. But we don't harvest that. We don't get a sickle and start cutting down and trying to get enough to go bake bread and do other things. It's for us to be able to consume because of hunger or we're passing through. Again, like a welfare system. Continue.
Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 1. When a man takes a wife and shall marry her, then it shall be, if she finds no favor in his eyes, because he has found a matter of uncoveredness in her, and he shall write her a certificate of divorce and put it in her hand and send her out of his house. And if she left his house and went and became another man's wife, and the latter husband shall hate her and write her a certificate of divorce and put it in her hand and send her out of his house, or when the latter husband dies who took her to be his wife, then her former husband who sent her away is not allowed to take her back to be his wife after she has been defiled, for that would be an abomination before Yahuwah. Do not bring sin on the land which Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you as an inheritance.
And this is important to understand this law because it explains prophecies of the Savior, how Mashiach as he's coming, what his mission was. Because understand that when the northern kingdom was divorced by the Most High, the only way to remarry her, he had to come in a flesh that could die in order to be able to be resurrected to marry her again, because that's law. He could not just go back and remarry her after she was given over to another. And so the Most High is following his laws. So understanding that law actually helps you understand deeper prophecies and understandings within the scripture. If a man divorces a woman and she gets married again, he cannot go back and marry that woman when she becomes available, whether through divorce or death of that husband, she is off limits to him. The only way that can happen is if he was to die and come back. But that can only happen, that would only come back in the resurrection. And so, again, understanding that law can actually bring about a deeper understanding to the mission and why Mashiach came and died.
Verse 5. When a man has taken a new wife, let him not go out into the army, nor let any matter be imposed upon him. He shall be exempt 1 year for the sake of his home, to rejoice with his wife whom he has taken.
And I love that particular law, because it shows that the Most High is concerned about our lives and our relationships. If a man gets married, you don't be putting undue strain on him or requirements, because then he doesn't have the opportunity to solidify or to bring about that deep relationship with his spouse. And so he is not to go out to war, because for a year he has to be able to then focus in his love and his desire, and and to build that relationship with his Isha before anything is going to be required upon him according to the nation.
Verse 6. No one takes in pledge the lower or the upper millstone, for he would be taking a life in pledge.
Now, what is that talking about? You don't take away from somebody their means of survival. You know that a millstone was meant to grind grain and to be able to make bread and to make meals with. And so to pledge or to take that away from somebody through a gamble or bet or whatever, now you're taking away from them their ability to be able to provide, for themselves and to eat. And so this is against Torah to do that. So whenever we see an individual, and that, this man he makes his livelihood driving a truck. You can't pledge against that truck, because you take his truck away. Now you're taking away his ability to provide for his family. And so we have to be careful not to make pledges against our livelihoods. Continue.
Verse 7. When a man is found kidnapping any of his brothers of the children of Israel, and treats him harshly or sells him, then that kidnapper shall die. Thus you shall purge the evil from your midst.
Not to kidnap him. Again, this is one of the things that happened to us as we sold to the other nations, kidnapped and sold to other nations against Torah. What happens to that individual that does that? This nation is going to find out, because judgment is going to be poured out, and that's a death penalty for doing that.
Verse 8. Take heed in an outbreak of leprosy, to diligently guard and do according to all that the priests, the Levi, teach you, as I have commanded them, so you shall guard to do. Remember what Yahuwah your Elohim did to Miriam on the way when you came out of Mitzrayim.
She was instructed to follow some guidelines, because she got leprosy. Anybody remember why she got leprosy?
Speaking against Moshe.
Speaking against Moshe. Saying, they can hear, I can hear as well as he can. We can lead, we can do this, and the Most High stood up for Moshe, and she was stricken with leprosy, but she was given guidelines as to what to do to be healed from that. And so what Torah is explaining to us is that we have, when we're sick, we got leprosy, or whatever diseases we have, make sure that we're following the instructions that were given to us by the priest in order to be able to get clean again. Continue.
Verse 10. When you lend your brother alone, do not go into his house to get his pledge. Stand outside and let the man to whom you lend bring the pledge out to you.
We don't go in and make another man, embarrass another man in front of his family. You're going to collect, what is owed to you. You respect him in his household. Don't go and stand in front of him and his Isha and make him look and belittle him and make him look, less than just to get your money. You stand on the outside and you call him out, and y'all deal with that. Y'all deal with the situation man to man. But don't do that in front of his family to belittle him, to make him look less than. Continue.
12. If a man is poor, do not sleep with his pledge. By all means, return the pledge to him at sundown, and he shall sleep in his own garment, and shall bless you. And it shall be righteousness to you before Yahuwah your Elohim.
So you make a pledge. He says, if a man is poor, do not sleep with his pledge. If he makes a pledge to be able to get bread, I'm going to be working today, and I give you, and I'll pledge my garment, towards the end of the day, so that so that I can buy bread. He's working his way, he's working himself, but for me to say no, I'm gonna hold on to this until the morning. That's wrong. Why? Because now now I'm causing this man to sleep in the cold. I have to give it back to him. Again, we're not here to make each other's lives miserable. We're here to care for one another. And so I know this brother is poor and is struggling. He's made a pledge. I've given him opportunity to make some money or to do some work, to be fed. When it's time to give him back his stuff, I give him his stuff back, because that's how he's going to stay warm. That's how he's going to stay protected. And if I don't, if he cries out to the Most High, I have to answer for that. Continue.
14. Do not oppress a hired servant who is poor and needy, of your brothers or of your strangers who are in your land within your gates.
Mm-hmm.
Give him his wages on the same day, and do not let the sun go down on it, for he is poor and lifts up his being to it, so that he does not cry out against you to Yahuwah, and it shall be sin in you.
Again, situation where we have a responsibility to make sure that somebody's poor, they're working day to day to eat and to take care of themselves. And who are we to turn to him and say, you know what, I just want, so as a show of my strength, I don't have to give you this today. Now I'm gonna let you go hungry for the night, because I don't like the way you looked at me. I don't like, there's something about you I don't like, and so I'm gonna give you your money in the morning. No, at the end of the day, because this is what he is relying upon. This is going to give him the strength to be able to take care of himself the next day. We don't hold back from these people. Continue.
16. Fathers are not put to death for their children, and children are not put to death for their fathers. Each is to die for his own sin.
Mm-hmm.
That's a key verse right there, that last statement.
Mm-hmm.
Every man shall be put to death for his own sin. And that's something that we have to consider in these last and wicked days. Why are we so worried about what other people are doing when we're going to be put to death for our own sin? Yes, we are our brother's keeper, and we do need to, if we find our brother overtaken in a fault, to restore such a one. But we have to remember to look in that mirror and check our own self. Where are we at? Because if we fulfill all the commandments, and then we still have sin in our life, what does that say about us? You can love your brother and still be a sinner. We have to take a long, hard look at ourselves.
When a sin is committed that requires a death penalty, what does the scripture say happens after that death? The land is purged of that sin. If somebody else is dying for what I've done, is the land purged of the sin? The sin still exists because the person that committed the sin is still alive. If it requires a death penalty, it is because it is required that the land be purged of the sin. But if we're going to put other people to death for the sin of this person or that person, then the land, then we're not removing sin from the land, and so every man has to die for his own sin.
Verse 17. Do not twist the right ruling of a stranger or the fatherless, nor take the garment of a widow.
So, a fatherless, a stranger, a widow, none of these have covering. A stranger has he wasn't raised with Torah. The fatherless wasn't raised in Torah. So he's susceptible to us to make sure that we're giving him the right rulings. He may not know what is right, what his rights are. But we know what his rights are. And we can't twist the right rulings just because they don't know and they don't understand, or because she doesn't have a covering to answer for her. We can't twist it. We know what is required in the right rulings, regardless of whether the stranger, fatherless, or widow, then we have to make sure that we follow the law according to its ruling and its right way. Continue.
18. You shall remember that you were a slave in Mitzrayim, and that Yahuwah your Elohim ransomed you from there. Therefore, I am commanding you to do this word. When you reap your harvest in your field, and you have forgotten a sheaf in the field, do not go back to get it, but let it be for the stranger, for the fatherless, and for the widow, so that Yahuwah your Elohim might bless you in all the work of your hands.
Again, another welfare system. You know, you're going out and you're harvesting the field, and you got the Most High calls you to forget something. You don't go back later on and say, oh, I got to go back out there, I forgot a roll. If you forgot a roll, it's because of the reason. The Most High that made you forget, and you go at this for a reason. Somebody's going to be coming through that he's going to be taking care of. We don't try to get everything, because there's going to be those that are going to be in need, and this provides for those that are in need. Again, providing a way for those that are poor, those that are strangers, those that don't have, to be able to have food. And Most High is the one that's blessing us anyway, so we don't need to get all the corners and all the different areas. Okay. Yeah.
Verse 20. When you beat your olive tree, do not examine the branch behind you. Let it be for the stranger, for the fatherless, and for the widow.
Trying to get off every little olive you can possibly get. Now leave some on there. Most of us bless you, because again, there are going to be some that's left to be able to take care of those that are without.
21. When you gather the grapes of your vineyard, do not glean behind you. Let it be for the stranger, for the fatherless, and for the widow.
Mm-hmm.
You shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Mitzrayim. Therefore I am commanding you to do this word.
Mm-hmm.
Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 1. When there is a dispute between men, then they shall come into judgment, and they shall be judged, and the righteous declared righteous, and the wrongdoer declared wrong. And it shall be, if the wrongdoer is to be struck, that the judge shall cause him to lie down and be struck in the presence with the number of blows according to his wrong.
Mm-hmm.
40 strikes he gives him, but no more, lest he strike him with many more blows than these, and your brother be degraded before your eyes.
It's not to humiliate him. It's to mete it out punishment. And so again, we're not to go over that. And this is the situation that we are in, because what was supposed to happen to us because of our sin wasn't. It was done. More was done, and because of that, the nations that have done more than they were supposed to, or taken more than they're supposed to, will be punished because of that. And so we have to make sure that if it's 40 lashes, it's 40 lashes, not one more. If it's 12, it's 12, not one more. Because we're not here to say, to meter out or to give our opinion to humiliate another individual. Continue.
Verse 4. Do not muzzle an ox while it is threshing. When brothers dwell together and one of them has died and has no son, The widow of the dead man shall not become a stranger outside. Her husband's brother does go into her, and shall take her as his wife, and perform the duty of a husband's brother to her. And it shall be that the firstborn son which she bears does raise up for the name of his dead brother, so that his name is not blotted out of Israel.
So, back to the first thing, don't muzzle an ox. You know, the ox is out there working hard. I mean, you know, it's out there performing a duty. We don't muzzle the ox to keep it from eating the grain just because we have to have every little bit that goes on. If it's out there working, we don't muzzle the ox, you allow it to eat. You got workers that are out there working, picking blueberries. You know, don't tell them they can't eat none of the blueberries. They can't eat none of this or that. I mean, they're out there working hard in the heat of the day, and you sitting back in your rocking chair and you say, "Oh, they can't eat." I want to make sure every berry hits that bucket. We don't muzzle the ox, you know. And now, what we're talking about here is the Levirate rule. The next segment here. If your brother who is married and they have no children, now a child has to be raised up in the brother's name because he had no children, and so that brother is to marry his brother's widow, and to go into her to have so that she can have a child, and that child is then is not considered his child, but his brother's child, and the inheritance of his brother goes to that child, and that again, according to law, it should happen. But again, they still have a right to decline that, but it does bring disgrace upon that family. But this is so that that brother's name is not wiped out amongst the nation of people.
Verse 7.
I was just going to say 2 words: kinsman, redeemer.
Mm-hmm.
Think of the story of Ruth and Boaz. Kinsman, redeemer, as we're reading through this. Continue.
Verse 7. But if the man does not desire to take his brother's wife, then let his brother's wife go up to the gate to the elders and say, "My husband's brother refuses to raise up a name to his brother in Israel. He does not agree to perform the duty of my husband's brother." The elders of his city shall then call him and speak to him, and he shall stand and say, "I have no desire to take her."
So he's given an opportunity, and she's gone, and she has presented her case. And he has to present his case, and he's letting them know, I don't want to have anything to do with her. I'm not going to raise up a child for my brother's sake. Continue.
Verse 9. Then his brother's wife shall come to him in the presence of the elders, and remove his sandal from his foot, and shall spit in his face, and answer and say, "Thus it is done to the man who does not build up his brother's house. And in Israel his name shall be called the house of him who had his sandal removed."
So he is to be disgraced amongst the people because he refused, because of his refusal. And so, again, when you're living in a society where honor and respect amongst your the elders is important, this is not something that you want put on you because you want it to be able to be heard and honored and respect. All of that carries down to your children. It carries, honor and respect is placed on your daughters as they're being married off to different men of respect and honor within the community. Because if you're going to be disgraced, then nobody's going to want to marry your daughter. So your family then now loses clout within the nation of people. So you didn't want this. I mean, it had to be a really, really good reason why you would not want this, why not take on this responsibility. Continue.
Verse 11. When men fight with one another, a man and his brother, and the wife of one shall draw near to rescue her husband from the hand of the one striking him, and shall put out her hand and take hold of him by the genitals. You shall cut off her hand. Your eye does not pardon.
So she's not gonna be pardoned from this. This is a serious situation. We read earlier that if a man had his genitals cut off or they were crushed or whatever, then he was not allowed to work within the community. So here, understand that this is very important. If these two brothers are fighting, and you see each losing, don't go grabbing the genitals, of that man and crushing them or causing him pain or whatever to be able to get, the upper hand. That's between them two. Let them deal with that. You do that to try to gain the upper hand, or you're gonna end up losing your hand for that situation that you done, because that is a very important aspect of our culture.
13. You shall not have in your bag differing weights, a heavy and a light. You shall not have in your house differing measures, a large and a small. You shall have a perfect and right weight, a perfect and right measure, so that they prolong your days on the soil which Yahuwah your Elohim has given you.
So it's important, again, we talk about not getting over on one another. Your weights have to be true. Everything that you use for commerce, to trade, to buy and sell, has to be on the up and up as we deal amongst ourselves. And so we have the weights and the measures have to be true in order to give everybody a fair balance.
16. For all who do these and all who do unrighteously are an abomination to Yahuwah your Elohim.
So when we try to get over on somebody by saying, you know what, I'm gonna shave off a little bit here so that I get more and he gets less, and as far as pay, then that's an abomination. That is an abomination, and we are told not to do that.
17. Remember what Amalek did to you on the way as you were coming out of Mitzrayim. How he met you on the way and attacked your back, all the feeble ones in your rear, and you were tired and weary, and he did not fear Elohim. Therefore it shall be, when Yahuwah your Elohim has given you rest from your enemies all around, in the land which Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you to possess as an inheritance, that you blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under the Shemu'ėl. Do not forget.
Most High, again, doesn't take it lightly when his people are being attacked. It is an unhonorable. It's not. You go attack the women and the children from the rear, the poor, the feeble, the old. That is a dishonorable act. And the Most High is not going to take light to that, and so we are to remember that as we are told to remember that as we were to deal with them in the future because of what they did. So as we look at the various laws and commandments that were given, there's things that we can gain and we can glean from that. I mean, we have a responsibility to take care of one another, and to be upfront and honest with one another in all of our dealings. The scriptures let us know that there's not to be any poor amongst us, but when there are those that are amongst us that are struggling, that we don't try to. We do what we can to help take care of them by not gleaning all of our fields and not picking all the fruit off the trees, not making sure that every little olive is on, but that we're leaving some for those that may be struggling, that may be passing through. How do we treat our animals? How do we treat those things? What is our responsibility to those that have lost certain things, certain items? When we come together to fellowship, has anybody left a scarf? Anybody left a cloak or pot or a pan or anything? What do we do with that? The scriptures give us guidelines as to what to do so that we are on the up and up with each other. Because when that person comes back to look for that, you know, we can't say, oh, I didn't know who it was, so I threw it away. But we're to put it up, and we're to care for it until that person comes back to ask. And when they come back to ask for it, then we give it back to them. And the same thing with their animals. We don't just say, well, it ain't my animal, so I'm going to leave it out in the pasture overnight, you know, for the wolves and the other animals to get to. And then say, well, I put it in the fence, but I wasn't going to put it amongst mine. You know, no, Most High said to put it, you know, we have to care for that until that individual comes back looking for it. So so we have to care for these things. Again, we see the details that he has for us in our day-to-day life. How to dress, what we can wear and what we cannot wear, along with what we eat and what we do not eat. All of these things he's given us detailed instructions so that we are a people that when the nations look at our lives, they know who we serve. And so again, we have a responsibility one to another. We are our brother's keepers. We are our brother's keepers. So often we see these various laws, and sometimes we see these little things, but I always say we need to look closer into them, because these are things that we can apply to our lives even today. There's some things that maybe we can't. Maybe you don't have a field and an ox or a donkey, but people have left things behind in your house. So apply that to your life. Apply the principle. Understand that, why is he asking me to do these things? Because he's asking you to do these things because he wants us to care for one another. You can apply that to your life today. You can apply that to the way you go and we treat each other. If we know that, he doesn't want any to be poor amongst us, then we need to work at looking around and seeing who's struggling. You see a brother struggling, he's hungry, and he comes to visit and he picks up an apple and eats it, and why are we getting bitten out of shape? Because he picked up an apple out of the bowl. Oh, he's a thief, and he wants something done. Instead of looking at his condition and situation and saying, you know what, we have more than enough. And that brother was hungry, and it was a pleasure to be able to satisfy the need that he had at this moment. No, he's not going to be around to take, to eat all of your food up, but he took, he needed an apple as he was passing through. Pick the apple off your tree. Look out your window, you see somebody picking grapes off your vineyard. And we out there with shotguns telling them, get off my land. Most High wants us to have a heart for our people, to care for our people. And we need to bring that into the way we live our lives today. Search out our lives today and find out where we can apply these principles to our lives so that we can honor and guard his Torah. And this is what we're supposed to do. Give the last word to Shemu'ėl, and then we'll close out as we go into our fellowship.
I'm going to leave you today with Yeshayahu chapter 54, and starting at verse 5 and going through verse 10. For your maker is your husband. Yahuwah Sabaoth is his name. And your Redeemer, the Kadosh One of Israel, the Elohim of the whole earth, shall he be called. For Yahuwah has called you as a woman forsaken and grieved in her ruach, and a woman of youth. When you were refused, says your Elohim, for a small moment, have I forsaken you. But with great mercies will I gather you. In a little wrath I hid my face from you for a moment. But with everlasting kindness will I have mercy on you, says Yahuwah, your Redeemer. For this is as the waters of Noach unto me. For I have sworn that the waters of Noach should no more go over the earth. So have I sworn that I would not be wroth with you, nor rebuke you. For the mountains shall depart, and the hills be removed, but my kindness shall not depart from you, neither shall the covenant of my peace be removed, says Yahuwah, that has mercy on you. We serve a merciful Elohim. And as he is merciful to us, we need to remember to be merciful to others. We follow his example in all that he does. We must be merciful as a people. There is a lot of infighting that's going on amongst our nation right now. One person doesn't like the other person's doctrine. This person says the name differently than I do. All sorts of things going on. But we have to remember the overarching principles that Yahuwah is showing us in his Torah. That we need to love each other and be merciful to each other. Let us think on those things the next time we want to berate one of our brothers or sisters. The next time that we want to argue someone down. Let us think about the mercy that he has shown to us and how we need to be merciful to others. Hallelujah. Todah, Yisrael, for joining us today for the reading of the Torah. We so appreciate every moment that we get to spend with you. We look forward to Shabbat because we know that those in our nation who are keeping his commandments are going to be observing his Shabbat. They're going to be praying. They're going to be praising. And we look so forward for the opportunity to do that with you. So Todah Rabbah for joining us today. And we hope to fellowship with you sometime soon. Hallelujah. Let us stand and pray. Yahuwah, Todah for your mercies which are new each day. Todah for that which you have brought forth today from your Torah. Principles that even we today, if we remember and observe and do them, will help us to understand the path that you have laid before us in life. We understand that you would not steer us wrong. We're supposed to live by every word that proceeds out of your mouth, Yahuwah. And so, when we study your Torah, we don't take it lightly. We understand that we're in the land of our captivity. and that this land doesn't follow your Torah. But that doesn't release us of our responsibility as your people, as your inheritance, to guard your commandments, to keep them and to do them. So we ask you to continue to lead us and guide us in your paths of righteousness for your name's sake. And we are so thankful for your mercies which you have shown to us as a people. We surely did not deserve the mercy that you have given us. But you said you will have mercy on whom you will have mercy. And so we, as we get ready to go up and to share a meal, we leave here with an attitude of gratitude towards you. Todah for all that you have done, for all that you're doing even in this moment, working in our hearts, and for all that you will do in our lives, in the life of your calls, and in the lives of all Yisrael, Yashua, wherever they are scattered. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Yahuwah, we ask that you would barak the food that we're about to receive, your bounty, barak it to the nourishment of our bodies and our minds. And Hashem Yahusha, sanctify and purify it, we pray. Hallelujah.
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 I will bless you and guard you.
Who will bless you and
God
guard
will
you?
bless you and guard you.
Who will make his face shine upon you.
Who will make his face shine upon you
Show you favor.
and show you favor.
Who will lift up his face upon you.
Who will lift up his face upon you
And give you
and give you
shalom.
shalom. Hallelujah.